Creepypasta time, Backwater nightmare. I'm a driver for a not-so-well-known delivery company, based in a small city in southern USA. I deliver almost anywhere within a 25-mile radius of the city, and I'm one of 8 drivers they employ. It's the only company of its name, so I will not disclose it or the city name, for our protection. We all drive big, old vans in various states of disrepair, and deliver to companies and homes, sometimes in suburbia, sometimes out in the middle of nowhere. This particular day, all of my deliveries happen to be out in the middle of nowhere. I'm still in training, so they reasoned it as a way to get me acclimated to that type of driving and make sure I could handle it safely. I'm not so sure it could have gone any worse for me, though. When you're out on the open road for so long, on the back roads and dirt paths, you can become complacent, lethargic, and tired. All of these are dangerous, especially for someone like me who is used to driving a small 2-door Honda Civic and not a 10-foot-tall screaming metal death trap. So imagine yourself in my shoes, 15 to 30 minutes between homes for deliveries, 12 packages to deliver in a day as quickly as possible, and mostly tranquil back roads with little to no activity. You'd probably get some highway hypnosis, like I did. It was nearly nightfall at this point and I only had 1.5 hours left to deliver everything and report back to station. I passed a delivery stop about 3 miles back. I still remember what happened next with vivid clarity. I'd muttered shit under my breath, cursing myself for being so neglectful to my own duties. Suddenly, moments after snapping out of my stupor and cursing myself, a large figure slinked out of a tree line to my left and moved across the road in front of me. Shit! I screamed, now, panic and adrenaline coursing throughout my body in a static shock that seemed to slow time around myself and my old, faithful van. I managed to swerve just in time to avoid the creature, tire marks etching themselves in the road, the tires making an ungodly screeching noise as I righted myself and tried to take back my side of the road. I came to a stop outside of a long, narrow gravel driveway, one my van definitely wouldn't fit down, at least not without a large risk for tipping into the ditch on either side. I recognized the address on the mailbox at the end of the driveway. I had a package to deliver here. I stayed in my van for a moment, wondering if it was my anxiety and drowsiness coming together for a vivid hallucination, one that felt real, but a hallucination it had to be. After all, where I live there's nothing like bears or mountain lions, nothing that would be as large as what my mind had tricked me into believing I had seen. I spent the next 5 minutes in my van calming myself down, drinking some water, and slapping myself awake. Constantly reassuring myself things like it was just your mind playing tricks on you. Or you're tired, you've been at this for 5 hours and didn't sleep well. I'd finally mustered up the courage to exit the van, package in hand, and began the walk down the seemingly infinite driveway. Of course, the driveway itself only took about a minute to walk down as I approached the house, a few lamps dotting along the driveway, with an interesting smelling scent. Due to company policy we can only walk up paved ways towards the house unless there is no available path to the area of delivery specified by the customer. Though in this case, I think it might have saved my life. I walked down the driveway at a pace one might consider to be a jog instead of a walk, and upon arriving at the customer's door I gave a soft knock. For the sake of privacy, I will refer to the customer as the nickname my coworkers had given him. Delivery for Mr. One-Eye. There are plenty of stories my coworkers have shared about Old One-Eye, but most of them were something along the lines of Old One-Eye is a weird motherfucker, and variations thereof. I'd never delivered to Old One-Eye, and had always been interested in meeting him since I'd first heard the tales of him. An old Navajo Native American medicine man, from what stories he's relayed to my co-workers. I noticed as I waited at Old One-Eye's front door that there was the tattered remnants of something in the front yard. As best as I could tell in the low light, it was straw and splintered wooden logs. A shed in front of Old One-Eye's house, maybe? Why would he tear it down? I didn't think much of it after this and gave another knock, louder this time. Mr. One-Eye. I've got your package outside. Are you home? The only light on the old man's porch was a singular electric bulb overhead, which seemed like it was on its last legs. Surprising, considering most amount of light on this property came from the lamps. I noticed one, apparently unfueled on the front porch. I knocked once more, apparently harder than I had intended, as the door slowly creaked open. Mr. One-Eye? I'm with delivery service. I didn't mean to open your door, it just kind of all at once a horrible stench assailed my nostrils. I saw a tall figure shift in the low light of the house, and as I opened the door fully I saw the unholy scene laid out inside. I saw Old One Eye, or more accurately, what used to be Old One Eye. He looked like he'd been mauled by something that wanted to do more than just harm or eat him. His living room had been torn to shreds, his clothes had been ripped off almost completely in the front and his torso and face. Oh God, I can't bear to describe it to you. But I did notice what was in the room with him now. It looked like a wolf had an unholy child with a crocodile, and what came out stood on two wolf legs, had the scaly exterior of a crocodile mixed with dark, coarse fur, and its gaping maw held teeth. So many teeth. So many teeth that didn't belong in a wolf's mouth. Crooked and hooked, and some of them looked as though they fought for dominance in the wolf's mouth, growing into each other, pushing each other out of the way. The image of this creature will be burned into my mind for the rest of my life, and if there is an afterlife, maybe for all of eternity. I did notice something even worse than that. Hooked into one of its claws on its, for lack of a better word, hands, was the remaining eye Old One I had left. It's as if this creature had a vendetta against the old medicine man. I didn't know what to do, I didn't know what to think. I knew I couldn't save him, he was already dead. I thought I couldn't save myself. I dropped the package and ran, sprinting down the stairs from his door and down the walkway to the driveway, still bound to the rules of my company even in this life or death scenario. I heard a blood-curdling, almost deafening screech from behind me in Old One Eye's house. It sounded like a woman screaming for her life, a wolf howling, and the sound of metal scraping against metal all mixed into one, soul-shattering cry. I had made it to the driveway when I heard footsteps and the clacking of claws against stone shortly behind me. I dove down on instinct, trying to curl myself into a ball to protect my vital areas, and the impact of landing on the gravel not only cut me, but knocked the breath out of me. I gasped for air in the graveled driveway, in pain, and trying desperately to get some amount of oxygen into my now aching lungs. I had expected death or the slow approach of a malevolent creature coming to take pleasure in my demise. It never came. After a few moments of catching my breath and fearing for my life, I glanced up. The creature was there, its unnatural presence looming just at the edge, where the walkway met the driveway. It came no closer. At first I assumed it was just taking its time, some sort of sick pleasure in stalking and killing me, but it never did. It just stood there, sometimes pacing, sometimes lunging in my general direction, but never past the lanterns. The pain, the aches, the adrenaline wearing off, the knowledge that somehow, some way, I was safe. I suppose it overwhelmed me, and I passed out. All I know is the next thing I remember happening was waking up, just before sunrise today, the sky opening up to light. My back and neck were stiff as a board and sore beyond belief, in Old One Eye's driveway. I got up in a daze, as if a man possessed, grabbed one of the lamps near the driveway, and went towards my van. I noticed that there were huge gash marks all across the van, and the passenger side window had been shattered. I inspected the van, just to make sure whatever it was hadn't set up in there to ambush me. Once making sure I was safe, I entered the driver's side door and sighed a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The events of the day overwhelmed me, and I bawled like a baby in the car for some time, I'm not quite sure how long. I checked my phone. 15 missed calls from my boss. He could wait though, as I called the authorities to report the mauling of the medicine man. I couldn't tell them some creature almost as tall as my van and as unnatural as to seem from the gates of hell itself had mauled him, so I told them that a starving coyote was what did it. They came around to the old man's home and questioned me, as I was the only witness, which looked bad on me of course. But after witnessing the man's body and the state of my van, well, they knew no human could do something like this. They said it was probably a pack of starving coyotes, and I must not have remembered rightly. No way one coyote could have done this. I simply nodded my head, lying that I couldn't remember much of the night's events, acted like I was in shock. They called my boss and explained the situation as well, and told him I'd call him personally later, and after they called paramedics for myself. My boss came to retrieve the now beat to hell van. I went off to the hospital, and that's where I type this now. I felt as if I should share this story because I can see the creature. When I close my eyes to sleep, it's there. When I look at a patch of darkness, it contorts to become the creature for just a moment. I see it out of the corner of my eye. I know it's coming for me. It remembers who I am. I think it remembered old One Eye. I think it took his eye originally, and it came back to finish him off. Maybe it held a grudge against him, I don't know. I just know that I'm next. Each time I see it someplace it becomes more vivid until just an hour ago. I was gazing outside the hospital window and I noticed the tree line across the road shift as the sun began setting. I've lit a lamp, and the same, interestingly soothing smell hit my nose. I'm safe, at least for a time. I don't know how long I will have until the lamp runs out and it has its chance to get me. I just need others to know about this thing, in case it comes after them too. The lamps are filled with ginseng, cactus flower, and garlic. I can't keep it at bay forever, unless I get more kindling for the lamp before it gets to me. But even then, I might just be prolonging the inevitable.